The name's Leemans, Hébert Leemans, a musician-composer at your service. Quite right, I must say. It's not a French name, nor am I from dear old France, although I've resided in Paris for quite some time. I hail from Flemish stock, you see, born in Bruges, and I must say I'm rather proud of it. Since my arrival in Paris, I've been publishing my symphonies under the name Leemans de Bruges, which clears up any confusion straight away. Have you ever been to Bruges? It's a marvellous little town. Granted, it may not hold the same importance it did during the Hanseatic times or possess the grandeur of the Burgundian era, but there's quite a lot happening in Bruges, mind you. The sound of the carillon resounds there, and it was in my youth, in the early 1750s, that I first heard symphonies. Bruges may not be Paris, but it has its own charm and opportunities, which is precisely why my father decided to settle there. He too was a musician, and as is customary, he passed on the trade to me. My brothers also became musicians, and two of them are still active in the musical scene in Bruges to this day. Originally, our family hailed from Leer. My father, Adrien, was an organist and city carillonneur there. It was there that he met my mother, Judith, and where my three eldest brothers were born. Sadly, one of them has since passed away, as has my father. But the other two, I assure you, are still making music and contributing to the musical life of Bruges. We owe it all to our father, you see. When he uprooted our family of five to become the city carillonneur and organist at the cathedral in Bruges, he did his utmost to ensure our smooth integration into the city. My father was quite an eccentric man, I must admit, a true all-rounder, but also quite mad. When I was merely 7, he displayed such peculiar behaviour that my mother contemplated having him committed to an asylum for his foolishness. He would pass away just 2 years later. But let's not speak ill of the departed, for in the end I owe him a few things. It was through his efforts that the fiancée of the alderman and high bailiff of the city of Bruges became my godmother. Marianne van Colin. She was a mere 21 when I was born in the blessed year of 1741. Oh yes, my godmother is an absolute gem. You see, without her, I wouldn't be here. It was she who financed my journey and initial stay in Paris when I realised that in a city like Bruges, I could no longer make any headway. By the time I started to hone my craft, thanks to my dear father and talented brothers, and realised that I might just be the most gifted among the lot, it became apparent that the Leemans family had already established quite a presence in the musical scene of Bruges. After my father's passing, my eldest brother took over as the carillonneur, but alas, he met a most unfortunate end a few years later, leaving the position to be filled by my second brother. The third brother then became the organist at the venerable Walburga Church. And what of me, you ask? Well, there simply wasn't a place for me in dear old Bruges. It was rather disheartening, given that I am the only one in the entire family who was actually born in Bruges. But fear not, for I had other plans brewing in my mind. In the 1750s, a society sprang up in Bruges calling themselves the Confrérie van het Concert. They would gather regularly in the quaint Wallerstraat behind the Berg to perform concerts. The orchestra primarily consisted of affluent citizens and aristocrats who had taken up music as a delightful pastime but sought the pleasure of playing together in a larger ensemble. And so they formed an orchestra, led by a few seasoned professionals, which hosted concerts several times a year, with the proceeds going towards charitable causes. My youngest brother was a regular member, playing the violin, and I can still vividly recall those days as a young teenager, lugging my cello along to the Wallerstraat, ready to delve into symphonic works with him and our esteemed companions. It was during those occasions that my godmother, the esteemed Marianne van Cologne, would grace us with her presence. Together with her, I hatched a daring plan to seek our fortunes elsewhere. Antwerp? No, not quite the right fit. Brussels? Already brimming with musicians surrounding Prince Charles's court. Ghent, perhaps. Not quite the bustling hub of activity either. Tournai? Well, it did warrant some consideration, but why not set our sights further afield? Why not broaden our horizons and embrace ambition? Why not aim for the very pinnacle, the place where countless Flemings, Frenchmen, and talented individuals of all sorts flocked to capitalise on their skills? Paris. Yes, Paris. It was Marianne who proposed the notion. Wouldn't I find greater joy in Paris? She had acquaintances there and was more than willing to provide me with a generous sum of pocket money. The thought of making music in Paris enthralled me. Through her connections, I could offer lessons here and there, ensuring a steady income during those initial months, shielding me from an early return to Flanders. Why not, indeed? In Bruges, there was no room for me, but in the grand city of Paris, one could carve out a niche for oneself. The streets teemed with affluent patrons, and the Parisians, well, they had an insatiable appetite for a new music. So, without further ado, I resolved to embark upon that road to Paris, where endless possibilities beckoned me forth.